Thank you, Sean.
We're live, so.
What time does the 7 o'clock meeting start?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Thank you, Sean. Congratulations, Jimmy. He's celebrating 3 years here tonight. Little uplift for TJ. He had a little setback today over in the Dallas area. TJ, if you pick up, we're all thinking of you here on Thursday night, brother. You got I love you too, TJ. We open every session with a prayer, and Wayne's here to do that for us.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we could spend together. God, empower us to walk through these difficult struggles and these trials that you put us through, that you put in our path to grow us and to draw us closer to you. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Wayne. Our regular friend, Joe Evans. Some of you guys that knew him amongst our crowd. He's doing very poorly right now, so lift him up in prayer if you're praying, people. He New Freedom graduate and kind of hung close, and anyway, he's in a coma and pretty much on life support right now. So he definitely can use the prayers. He knows where he's going, but he would appreciate the prayer. And Jesse and Amanda, we love you, and we're praying for you guys too, whatever your outcomes are out in Oklahoma. So tonight, all that aside, we're going to take a look at the 12th step, which is, working with others. And the purpose for the steps is to properly arm me with the facts about myself, to center me in my identity through, the leveling of pride and the confession of shortcomings, to get me ready to go out and perform the task of being the hands and feet of God here on earth. So whether or not that's what your understanding of the 12th step, the opportunity to put into practice what it is you've been doing is all contained in the step 12 instructions. So we're going to go take a look at that tonight and see how everyone's feeling about it, and hopefully encourage people that are still afraid to go find someone to help, right? So chapter 7, working with others, it says practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. So the authors have told you what to do, and they've given you a promise, and maybe more than one promise, and some conditions. Yes? Yep. So what are they saying? How does one gain practical experience?
By doing.
Yeah, you're going to probably have to do it, and you're probably going to have to do it more than once, right? And then it says it'll ensure immunity from drinking, this intensive work with other alcoholics. And then it says it works when other activities fail, which sounds a bit like a promise too.
Yes.
Other activities are going to fail.
They will.
So what are those other activities, one might ask?
Call your sponsor, go to a meeting, read a book, all the other shit we tell people to do.
Yeah, so to Sean's point, no one's bashing on the fellowship on this meeting. What we're saying is all those fellowship suggestions, while helpful, are not insurance against drinking.
No.
What we're saying is the only way to ensure yourself that your sanity remains intact is to give testimony of what's been done for you. So then it says, this is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. So carry what message?
Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much every message that we're laying down, right? If you really want insurance against returning to stinking thinking, you need to serve. And every time you're feeling like you're not thinking right, you need to serve more, not less. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
All right, so you can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they're very ill. How many of you found purpose in trying to help other people? How many of you needed to find purpose in your life? Yeah, one of the things we get here dying of, what do they say? We're egomaniacs with low self-esteem. So we get here dying of that weird condition. And the one thing that we find is that we're capable of doing something because of our lived experience that no one else can do.
Right.
But we're going to have to put it to work, right? All right, so that says life will take on new meaning. So there's some more promises. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you'll not want to miss it. Then they go on to say frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. I like to call to people's attention the words the authors use here. They discussed all these things we were going to see, but then they described them as an experience. Why didn't they describe them as a sight?
You know them until you experience them.
Yeah, I think some of you know because you can feel it. I can feel you in the room feeling what I'm laying down. You see differently today because you're serving this power. Yes?
Yes.
And they're not talking about these. This is an experience you must not miss. Yes? All right. So perhaps you're not acquainted with any drinkers who want to recover. Do you think that's true in any urban area today? So some people said yes and some people chuckled. Have you discovered that people who do not want to recover are found in places we wouldn't necessarily suspect? Did you ever encounter any people who did not want to recover in places you thought it was weird to find them? To Wayne's point, how many of you have been a person who did not want to recover? Okay. So in other words, showing up in places doesn't necessarily mean that I want to recover or that I even believe I can be recovered. Yeah. So you can easily find some by asking a few doctors, ministers, priests, or hospitals. They'll be only too glad to assist you. Don't start out as an evangelist or a reformer. Unfortunately, a lot of prejudice exists and you'll be handicapped if you arouse it. So what do they mean that don't start out as an evangelist or a reformer?
Hallelujah, brothers and sisters.
Sean's had an overdose of religious experiences. How about the reformer? The reformer is someone who's telling you about all the evils of alcohol and drugs, right? You ever met the guy that just stopped smoking a week ago and now they... demon rum, any of that kind of stuff? I mean, the opportunity to reach me is slim and none with an attitude of intolerance. And we are trying to reach people who are deeply in delusion, which means we can't show any sign of intolerance at all. All we can show is certainty. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Certainty is provided as a byproduct of experience. Right? You ever seen someone that knew how to perform a craft and you knew they knew because they showed you they knew? Like they knew every trick. They knew tricks you didn't even know were tricks. Yeah. That's the same way we are in recovery. You get properly armed with the facts about yourself and you quit fighting with the idea of what you're seeing and start speaking to them about why you were sent to them. You can talk to them with certainty that they haven't ever heard before. But it happens that because of your own drinking experience, you can be uniquely useful to other alcoholics.
Yep.
So cooperate, never criticize. To be helpful is our only aim. The pure model has worked for thousands of years. Nothing works better than it. It's not a debate, although people like to debate it. But the fact is, the pure model works. AA is living proof of it. Been going on for years and years and years. And you want to see another one? Look at all apprenticeships.
Yep. Been
going on for centuries. When you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about them. How do we do that?
Listen.
Engage in conversation and listen to what they have to say. Not listening to respond, but listening to understand. Does it make sense? And I say that we have to train ourselves to listen to understand, right? We really do have to vacate our thoughts about situations, or pretty soon in the middle of a conversation, we're listening to respond.
Right.
So if he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him. You may spoil a later opportunity. So how many of you tried to talk to people about recovery and you could tell they weren't having it?
Yep.
So it's not cruel to disengage from the conversation. In fact, it's cruel to pretend that you're more powerful than the alcohol or drug that they're seeking. It makes no sense. If they're not looking for an answer, then quit trying to give them one. I always tell people, quit selling. Once you get yes, quit selling. You ever had somebody selling you something so hard you said yes 4 times, they wouldn't shut up, and you went to a no? Sometimes we do that in recovery too. Okay, so this advice is given for his family also. They should be patient, realizing that they're dealing with a sick person. You're going to have to help them understand, because they're going to be crushed by that person and all the things that happen because of addictive disorder in households. So you're going to have to help them understand through your own experience. Look, this is what it looks like. This is what's going on, and it isn't personal. And here's how I know, right? So it says, if there is any indication that he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested in him. Usually his wife. Now back then, huh?
Hard to do.
Yeah, to Sean's point, we were more likely to meet him in fellowships, or the more of this work you do, people may enlist you, family members may refer you, employers may refer you, and then you can, but reality is you're probably going to hear them at a meeting, and they're probably already be confused. Get an idea of his behavior, his problems, his background, the seriousness of his condition, and his religious leanings. Why do I want to know that?
Because you're going to have to approach him on step 4.
Well, and I don't think I'm going to get to step 1 if I start talking about things that he has prejudice already hardwired into him about. So I need to approach him the way I wish I were approached when I needed someone to approach. Does it make sense? So you need this information to put yourself in his place to see how you would like him to approach you if the tables were turned. It says all of us have been on day 1. All of us have had that profound meeting with someone who was making sense when no one before had made sense, right?
Yep.
Be that guy. Don't be the one that was a jerk to you, and so you want to emulate that. We do that sometimes. When I was new, I couldn't get a 30-day chip. Couldn't get it. And, they would tell me, if you don't have a, if you're under 30 days, stand up every day. So I'd stand up every day. And I had a guy come up to me and goes, you ever going to stop standing up under 30 days? It was not useful. I was so diminished. But I'd had an old timer come up to me. He says, Joe, if you will just keep standing up until you get past that hurdle, if you'll hold on to that little bit of humility, I promise you'll be delivered. So I answered that guy. I said, nope, not as long as I keep drinking before 30 days, I won't quit standing up. And I've seen that guy at meetings since. And, he looks like that demon, the cockroach that runs in the... and I don't ever want to be that guy, because I can't imagine being that hateful to somebody so crushed. Anyway, so you need this information to put... Sometimes it's wise to wait till he goes on a binge. The family may object to this, but unless he's in a dangerous physical condition, it's better to risk it. Don't deal with him when he's very drunk unless he's ugly and the family needs your help. Wait for the end of a spree, or at least for a lucid interval. Then let his family or a friend ask him if he wants to quit for good, and if he would go to any extreme to do so. That's an interesting question I doubt we pose to people anymore. Are you willing to quit for good? I remember my sponsor said that to me, and I had never heard it. I'd heard all this one day at a time thing. And I'm like, okay, that makes perfect sense 30 years into the journey. You do it one day at a time. But the reality is when you can't get one day, I'm going to need the power of a decision that's more than a day long. And so what they said is ask him if he's ready to quit for good. And if not, see if you can find another way. Don't waste that valuable high time. So if he says yes, then his attention should be drawn to you as a person who has recovered. You should be described to him as one of a fellowship who, as part of their own recovery, try to help others and who will be glad to talk to him if he cares to see you. So you see the modern service commitments and things like that were all designed to fulfill that. It makes sense, right? You guys are in treatment centers, you bring people in. Here's somebody of a fellowship who, as a program of their own recovery, must serve you. Yeah? All right, so if he does not want to see you, never force yourself upon him. Neither should the family hysterically plead with him to do anything, nor should they tell him much about you. Don't let other people tell your story. It's your testimony. You tell it. General, it's all you need to know, right? And then they should wait for the end of his next drinking bout. You might place this book where you can see it in the interval. Here, no specific rule can be given. The family must decide these things, but urge them not to be over anxious, for that might spoil matters. When I came in the 1980s, all of a sudden around my house, I kept seeing big books laying around. I had no idea Dad's drinking had gotten so out of control. That was the state of my delusion. But anyway, never bothered to pick one up or inquire. Anyway, all right, so I'm going to jump from there to middle of page 91. It says, see your man alone if possible. So how do you guys do that?
Get in the car.
Sean always says that. For years and years, he kidnaps them. What about the rest of you? How do you meet the new ones? Yeah, get there a little early, stay there a little late. Yeah. So at first, engage in general conversation. What's that look like?
Where'd you grow up?
Where did you go to
Well, I think we assume people are new that aren't new. We assume people are there for the same reasons we went there. I think they're just suggesting general conversation. I haven't seen you before. Are you new in the area? You work around here? Whatever, as opposed to what they normally hear. What do they normally hear?
You need a sponsor.
Yeah.
I'm your sponsor.
Yeah, sometimes we assume too much. So then Sean kidnaps him right away. After a while, turn the talk to some phase of drinking. So we're going to have a dialogue, and then we're going to talk about why we met each other in this place, whatever this place is. Yes? Tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to speak of himself. I'm going to talk to him about me, and the purpose of that is to encourage him to speak about him. So I'm going to have to pay attention to his responses to what I'm talking about to see what's resonating. So that's the first beginning of active listening, is making sure you're asking questions that require a response and that you're showing genuine interest, right? Where's my therapists around here? They've all left out of the room. They don't want yes and no questions, right? You guys in behavioral health, we want you to expound on what's going on with you. Yes? Yes. Okay, so if he wishes to talk, let him do so. You'll thus get a better idea how you ought to proceed. See, I'm not going to know how to proceed until he tells me what he's willing to do and what he perceives his problem to be. I may perceive his problem completely different than he perceives his problem. So if he's not communicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit, but say nothing for the moment of how that was accomplished. So why would they suggest we say nothing about how our apparent recovery has been accomplished?
Might scare them off.
Might scare them off. Is there anyone in the room who knows the how that their drinking or drugging was arrested? I mean, because you're really missing the boat. There's a lot of money if you really do know how. You can sell that. But my guess is to a person now, no matter how many of you are listening to me, none of you know how. Using every day, no matter what, eating out of dumpsters, just defiling yourself beyond all, just unbelievable depths of dignity robbing behavior, completely counter to who we want to be. And then one day it's arrested and it's gone and it doesn't happen again. And so how was that accomplished?
Reaching a point of complete hopelessness.
But the whole point is that, yeah, it's the who, but I don't want to tell them about the who if it's going to scare them off. I just going to see when they're going to ask me at some point, how did you do it? I didn't. But let me tell you what happened. Right? See, the power of testimony is you can disagree with my interpretation of the facts, but you can't disagree with the facts. I'm the expert on the facts. Right? I'm the expert on the facts about me. So if he's in a serious mood, dwell on the troubles liquor has caused you, being careful not to moralize or lecture. So what do they mean there? Yeah, don't be degrading about drinking as an institution, addiction as a thing, about your own self, right? Because what the problem is, if we describe ourselves in disparaging terms, they hear you mean like me. It's just the nature of where we come from. If his mood is light, tell him humorous stories of your escapades and get him to tell some of his. So how many of you got humorous stories of your, Good. When he sees you know all about the drinking game, commence to describe yourself as an alcoholic. Tell him how baffled you were and how you finally learned that you were sick. So how baffled were you with your condition, and how did you finally learn that you were sick? Or are many of you still learning that you'd been sick? I think a lot of us walk out a long time before we realize how sick we were, or even think of it about that, because we don't really think mental illness applies to us. So give an account of the struggles you made to stop. So did you make any struggles to stop?
Yes.
So that's part of being armed with the facts about yourself. See if there's something relatable there. I had a guy one time says, I've never made a serious effort to stop. I go, really? Well, I guess we're done. I've closed my book. And he goes, what do you mean we're done? He goes, well, I need you to help me with this. And I said, well, I'm pretty sure you do too. But you said you never made a struggle to stop, so your first assignment is go make a struggle to stop. He goes, well, I was admitted to a detox when I was 11. And then I go, yeah, sometimes getting admitted to a detox at age 11 would be considered a struggle to stop in some constructs. Let's work with that. Right? Because we don't think any of it applies to us. We giggle about this stuff, but it's absolutely real to them because they're trying to impress us. I'm really serious about working with you. I've never done this before. What? Right? We do that. Okay. Show them a mental twist which leads to the first drink of a spree. We suggest you do this as we've done it in the chapter on alcoholism. If he's an alcoholic, he'll understand you at once. He'll match your mental inconsistencies with some of his own. So let's test their theory. In the chapter on alcoholism, they talk about Jim the car guy. Jim the car guy didn't have any trouble, didn't even drink till he was 30 some years old. making his way in the business world, and then started drinking. He always had a nervous disposition. When he started drinking, apparently it helped him with his nerves. Any of you ever been helped with your nerves through chemical additives? So Jim was really good at drinking, better at drinking than business, apparently. And he soon landed in a hospital where he ran into AAs and went through this whole thing. So now he's going to have to go to work for the dealership he once owned. I don't know if any of you can relate to working in a car dealership. I can. I've done it. They like you high, but not all the time. They know you're going to come to work if you're just the right high. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. I had a guy give me a drug test at a dealership one time. He said, dude, if you can't pass it, don't worry about it. I'll mark it off. And I go, I can pass it. He goes, no, seriously. I said, what do I look like? Anyway, another whole story. So Jim is going to work for the dealership he once owned, and it says he was a little agitated. Any of you ever get a diminished job as a result of your behavior and addiction, and you felt diminished? Would you describe it as feeling a little agitated? And when he got to work, he had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious. Any of you ever had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious? Sheriff's going, yeah, I tuned him up.
But he went to work on Tuesday.
So the whole situation is this guy started out already agitated. Now he's created a situation that says he decides that he's going to go out looking for people to buy cars in the woods, presumably, where the people who buy cars who don't come to dealerships hang out. And on his way out there, he passes a roadside place that has a bar. And he thinks, I could go in there, get something to eat. I'm not worried about having a bar. I've eaten here many times. So he orders a sandwich and a glass of milk, and then the thought comes to him, you know, if I had another sandwich, another glass of milk, I could order a shot of whiskey because it wouldn't hurt me on a full stomach. Now, you guys that aren't drinkers, I get it. It doesn't make any sense. But you guys that find every reason to go show the fellows at the trap house how good you're doing. Let me show you what sobriety looks like. Let me just sit in the corner here and see what's up. So anyway, that's what Jim did. And he took the shot of whiskey, and the experiment went so well, it says that he had another, and then another, and then another trip to the asylum. And the other thing they talk about is Fred, who he wasn't as bad as the alcoholics. He met alcoholics, but he wasn't that bad. And I appreciate your insight, but that's not what I need. I just don't pick up no matter what. You're going to meet a lot of those people in our fellowship. I just don't pick up no matter what. And that's true if it's true. But you may discover what I did. I pick up no matter what. It's just a matter of time. And so, and when that happens, you're not in charge of when it ends. So anyway, he apparently was doing really good and had a successful day in business in New York, walked through the restaurant and heard the frivolity and ordered a drink, thought it would go well. He came 2-3 days later in a cab. And then they talk about a jaywalker. Any of you relate to if you substituted your addiction for jaywalking, it wouldn't seem so ridiculous. Okay, so what the authors had told us is if we draw this reasoning to, one another, we'll find some relatability, right? He'll match your mental inconsistencies with some of his own. The fact that we're all doing it, so will everyone else. Is still working all these years later. Some fishing tricks. So then it says, if you're satisfied that he's a real alcoholic, begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. So how would I know? What do they mean? That's pretty specific. The real alcoholic. Nice thing about this book is they don't describe anything that they haven't previously described. If they tell you to do something, they've already told you how to do something, or they plan to tell you how to do it. So where'd they talk to us about the real alcoholic? Well, the real alcoholics on page 21, it says there is a solution. And if you go to 2021, let's just take a look at it real quick while you're just all here together. So let's see if we relate to them. Let's see if we can narrow it down a little bit. Moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving up liquor entirely. If they have good reason for it, they can take it or leave it alone. So does that fit your experience? Because we usually don't come to recovery if we're not having any trouble taking it or leaving it alone. I have a lot of ease in taking it. I have much difficulty in leaving it alone. So I'm not moderate, is my point. I can cross that off the list. And then it says, then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years before his time. If a sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, or the warning of a doctor becomes operative, this man can also stop or moderate, although he may find it difficult and troublesome and may even need medical attention. So that guy could end up where if he needs medical attention? He could end up in detox with me. But he's going to tell a very different story than I am. And his sounds better. I can take it or leave it alone. Because he had a sufficiently strong reason. How many of you had a sufficiently strong reason to stop and stay stopped? How many of you blew right past that barrier? I have a lot of family members over the time. You know, why don't you be like old Uncle Billy? He was drinking just like you. He just stopped, never picked up another drink. I said, fuck old Uncle Billy. Uncle Billy a quitter. I'm just, because there is no explanation, right? There is no explanation, right? So, okay. So that's the real alcoholic. What about the real alcoholic? You may start out as a moderate drinker. Any of you drink your way into it? Some people do. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker. How many of you are periodic? Okay. So, but at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. So it's always about control. When you're losing control progressively, you're in trouble. And the illusion of control is what continually, and that's why it's drinking's just a symptom, because we're restless, irritable, and discontent because we're trying to control other things, and the insanity returns. You understand what I'm saying? That's why we're treating the mind, not the drinking. It takes no power to not do, but it does take power to rewire this brain. And the only way that happens is if I offer myself in servitude, the whole purpose of this. Make sense? All right. So then it says, if you're satisfied that he's a real alcoholic, begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. So the hopeless feature is what?
Can't stop.
No matter what, how resolute your resolution, the likelihood is if you're very seriously afflicted, you're not going to be able to stop and stay stopped. That's the hopeless feature. And it says that show him from your own experience how the queer mental conditions surrounding that first drink prevents normal functioning of the willpower. So that's what the steps will help you understand. Yeah? Or are those of you that have had relapses and had someone sit down and help you unpack it? When did your thinking go? Because see, the insanity of addiction or alcoholism isn't the crazy stuff I do once I'm lit. The insanity is knowing the certainty of how bad it's going to be once I get lit. I do it anyway. And so something led me to that insanity that if I'm better armed and better tooled, I can start catching it in the thought phase. Yes? So don't at this stage refer to this book unless he's seen it and wishes to discuss it, and be careful not to brand him as an alcoholic. Why not? Yeah. How many people considered you an alcoholic or a drug addict?
Yeah.
How did it affect your?
Doesn't matter what they do.
I used it as an excuse if I needed to. So let him draw his own conclusion. If he sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him possibly he can if he's not too alcoholic. Now that sounds cruel, but we're not throwing him under the bus. We're playing to our nature. If anyone tells you you're not addict enough, you're going to go to great lengths to explain to me what a shit show you really are. It's just what we do. And if they don't, they're not ready. Like I had somebody, a gal, and she was in a Crystal Meth Anonymous group, and we were doing back and forth. And so we were talking about, the behavior and how you respond to the methamphetamine. And she's a hard no and everything. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know why you're here. She goes, well, I get some relief from these meetings. I said, well, explain to me one more question. Why do you do methamphetamine if none of these things apply? She goes, well, it's the only way I can stop eating. Oh, we have a food addict. So you are medicating your food addiction with methamphetamine, and we're treating you wrongly. We're treating you with judgment. And some of you are feeling that right now. See, because I had assumed because of where I met her, I knew the problem, but I didn't. The problem is she had body image issues that needed to be addressed, which this power can restore us from. But we still got to talk to them in relatable ways. Insisted if he's severely afflicted, there may be little chance that he can recover by himself. Continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. Talk about the conditions of body and mind which accompany it. So what are they talking about?
Physical cravings, mental obsession.
Yeah, a craving beyond my mental control once I put it in my body. But this obsession that it just won't leave me alone until I just find myself there. Yeah? So keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience. Explain that many are doomed who never realize their predicament. How many of you know lots of people? I mean, if you stay around our community and you try and help people, I mean, you won't have talking theories. We bury them all the time. Doctors are rightly loath to tell alcohol patients the whole story unless it'll serve some good purpose. But you may talk to them about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. You'll soon have your friend admitting he has many, if not all, the traits of an alcoholic. If his own doctor is willing to tell him that he's an alcoholic, so much the better. Even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he's become very curious to know how you got well. Let him ask you that question if he will. So what's that going to require of me?
Patience.
Yeah, I'm going to have to wait until they ask, right? Because one of the things we over-evaluate is our own opinion. We overvalue our own opinion. And people really don't like unsolicited opinions. And they really don't pay that much attention to solicited ones. Right? So says, tell him exactly what happened to you. Stress the spiritual feature freely. If the man be agnostic or atheist, make it emphatic that he does not have to agree with your conception of God. He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself and that he live by spiritual principles. So the spiritual principles may seem weird to some, but they're contained in the steps. You'll don't get your knickers in a knot over that. How do I tell the story when they ask? Exactly what the facts were. I was a dead shell of a man. No matter how bad I wanted to stop, and I desperately wanted to stop, and I wanted to quit hurting the people that cared about me, I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop hurting other people, and I couldn't stop the destruction that was going on in my life. And even when they'd lock me up or chain me down or hospitalize me, I'd get right up and I'd go do it again. And then one day, one guy, properly armed with the facts about himself, came to a detox, and he started speaking to me, and he hit me with this power, this solution that we're talking to you. The solution isn't a step experience. It is the experience. It's the power within him. And when he spoke to me, the power washed over me, even in my sickened condition, and I've never been the same. And he told me that that power was God.
Power.
So I could argue with him about my ideas of theology, but I could not argue with him about what was happening within my spirit and what he claimed had happened to him. And so the only thing I could do as a man of logic, even though I didn't look like a man of logic, was to see what he had to say. So I met with him, and he walked me into this manner of living. And I've been doing it for lots and lots of years, and I've been blessed to be instrumental in showing a whole lot of other people this thing, but that's what it looks like. I don't do any of it because I'm a good person, but I have grown into a better person because of all the people that have allowed me to serve them. Does it make sense? So when dealing with such a person, you'd better use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. There's no use in arousing any prejudice you may have against certain theological terms and conceptions about which you may already be confused. Don't raise such issues no matter what your own convictions are. So they didn't come to me for a Bible lesson. They came to me for a how-to on how to straighten up my thinking and stop drinking myself to death. That's why they came to me, right? We may have a lot of discussions about other things after the fact, but initially, we try and stay in our lane here. I'm unapologetic about my faith and where my faith is found. But that's not the first conversation we're going to have, right? I'm just going to tell you what that faith has done for me and what it apparently wants to do for you if you'll let it. And I say, you know why I say apparently? Because there's 7 billion people on this rock, and I've been led to you. I don't get sent out to treat hangnails, so y'all better buckle up, Buttercup. You must be serious. I don't get to meet everybody. I just get to meet the ones that are sick like me. All right. So I'm going to jump from there. I don't want to get into the religious part, but I'm going to go to 94. It says, outline the program of action explaining how you made a self-praise. So it'd help if I'd done that. Yeah? And they want me to outline the entire manner of living, right? So it helps if you can lay the whole case out so they know where they're going, but don't get your knickers in we're not trying to, don't go from 1 to 9 but I'm going to tell you what it's going to do and how each one's going to prepare you so you know what you're walking into. Because we're trying to build conscious relationship. Can't do that without examining it with your logical mind. Does that make sense? So how you straightened out your past. So how did I straighten out my past? I probably made amends. I probably paid some bills I owed back. I made some apologies. I started treating people different to their specifications. So other people I left alone to their specifications. Yeah? And why you're now endeavoring to be helpful to him. Why am I now endeavoring to be helpful to him? It's my commitment. So the commitment I made in the third step decision was that as long as I have a breath in my lungs, I'll use it to advocate for my brother and sister. And right now, I'm here advocating for you. Whether you believe in it or not, I'm advocating for you before the Father. And I am a man with authority to do that. That's just the way it is. And it's profound. Just some of you are going, but that's the truth, right? And it's important for him to realize that your attempt to pass this on to him plays a vital role in your own recovery, right? How am I going to stay sane and of a sound mind if I'm not giving testimony? The evil one is cast down by the blood of the Lamb, the sacrifice already made, and the word of my testimony. Actually, he may be helping you more than you're helping him. How many of you have found that's probably true? True. Because the vast majority of the people I've encountered haven't stayed well, but I have. So it's not a theory. They've helped me more. They've made me better. Make it plain he's under no obligation to you. Why? Because I'm under obligation. I'm a man under authority, right? I made a commitment to an authority I now serve. And my obligation is not to you, but to him for you, right? And you have no obligation to me because you're not asking anything. You hope only that he will try to help other alcoholics when he escapes his own difficulties. Why would I hope that for him?
You want him to have that freedom that you have.
Yeah, a lot of people miss that. The big amends is not 9, it's 12. That's how we make sense of that musty past, is going out and confronting our old ideas to lift other people up, right? So I mean, we've got to continue to help people understand that if you're just going to sit in rooms and talk about this stuff and you're not going to go take the power out for a walk, you're going to cheat yourself out of the freedom that walking in power provides. So it suggests how important it is that he place the welfare of other people ahead of his own. Make it clear that he's not under pressure and he needn't see you again if he doesn't want to. And you should not be offended if he wants to call it off, for he's helped you more than you've helped him. If your talk has been sane, quiet, and full of human understanding, you've perhaps made a friend. Maybe you've disturbed him about the question of alcoholism. This is all of the good. Don't be afraid to tell the truth from your perspective, is what they're saying. I don't need to leave them feeling good. They didn't come to me feeling good. They asked me for the truth. I owe them nothing less. Here's the truth. Not what I think will happen to you, what I know would have happened to me had I not taken action. Yes? This is all the good. The more hopeless he feels, the better. He'll be more likely to follow your suggestions. Your candidate may give reasons why he need not follow all of the program. You ever had someone tell you why they didn't want to do it all? Have you ever been someone who didn't want to do it all? We all know what that's like, right? Okay, so he may rebel at the thought of a drastic house cleaning, which requires discussion with other people. They tie those together because, when they did the step, none of these people did 12 steps. It's interesting, they wrote a book about the 12 steps, but none of them did 12 steps. This is the first marketing effort of the 12 steps. So you got to understand that they're linking. A lot of times the reason I don't want to do an inventory is not because I fear what's my past is, because I know what it is. I fear telling you what it is. And so we need to address the real fear and help them, right? Because all of us have had the guy that says, I want to do it, and then they don't. And, they only do that once or twice. We know it's fear holding them back, right? And all I would say to them is you're allowing fear to steal from you a better experience of you. And if you want to move forward, we can walk through it together. You don't have to be left alone, right? Find a way. Do not contradict such views. Tell him you once felt as he does, but you doubt whether you would have made much progress had you not taken action. On your first visit, tell him about the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. If he shows interest, lend him a copy of this book. So the book is the program. The fellowship is where we go to gather. Not everyone in the fellowship is doing the program. Don't assume that. There's no expectation that they would. Remember, there's a lot of hard drinkers in our fellowships. Given sufficient reason, they stop and stay stopped. They ain't lying. And they got a right to be here, right? Okay, so unless your friend wants to talk further about himself, do not wear out your welcome. Give him a chance to think it over. If you do stay, let him steer the conversation in any direction he likes. Sometimes a new man is anxious to proceed at once, and you may be tempted to let him do so. This is sometimes a mistake. If he has trouble later, he's likely to say you rushed him. You'll be most successful with alcoholics if you do not exhibit any passion for crusade or reform. Never talk down to an alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop. Simply lay out a kit of spiritual tools for his inspection. Show him how they work with you. Offer him friendship and fellowship, and tell him that if he wants to get well, you'll do anything to help. So the promise we give him is not that don't have to feel this way again if you don't want to. The silly things you're going to feel a lot worse, dude. Life's going to happen, and you're going to feel miserable, and you got no way to hide from it. That's the truth. So what we need to do is improve consciousness of this power in your life so your emotions don't overwhelm you. And we're gonna help you. You're not your thoughts and you're not your emotions, but it sure seems like you are when you're in a storm. Does it make sense? So if he's not interested in your solution, if he expects you to only be acted only as a banker for his financial difficulties or a nurse for his sprees, You may have to drop him until he changes his mind. This he may do after he gets hurt some more. It's not cruel to let them go do what they're going to do anyway. It's cruel to pretend that you're stopping them and then go on your merry way a week from now, and then they go out and die. And so, let's get real. Let's talk to them real stuff. Let's check on them regularly, but let's not pretend, all I got is, I'm not the Savior. I just got a testimony about the Savior. So if he's sincerely interested and wants to see you again, ask him to read this book in the interval. After doing that, he must decide for himself whether he wants to go on. He should not be pushed or prodded by you, his wife, or his friends. Feast to find God. The desire must come from within. The tradition of sitting down and reading with them comes from, you show them a copy of this book and they'll soon find out they can't read it. No one can read it on their own. Because we don't know how to read a book of experience until someone shows us with the experience. Does it make sense? And then we can walk them through and point out the experience while it's happening in them. Because they're talking about an unfolding awakening of the Spirit. We got to call that to their attention. I'm going to jump from there because we're going to run out of time. I'm going to jump over to, I always tell everyone I will tell them this. Where the hell is it? Never mind. I'm lost. Okay. Never avoid these responsibilities, but be sure you're doing the right thing if you assume them. Helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. A kindly act once in a while isn't enough. You have to act the Good Samaritan every day if need be. So what did the Good Samaritan do that all the other people didn't do for the man that was beaten on the road? Even though he was the one guy that shouldn't have. Right? So you're going to have to do that every day if need be. Right? And then it says, it may mean the loss of many nights' sleep, great interference with your pleasures, interruptions to your business. It may mean sharing your money and your home, counseling frantic wives and relatives, innumerable trips to police courts, sanitariums, hospitals, jails, and asylums. Your telephone may jangle at any time of the day or night. Your wife may sometimes say she's neglected. A drunk may smash the furniture in your home or burn a mattress. You may have to fight with him if he's violent. Sometimes you'll have to call a doctor and administer sedatives under his direction. Another time you may have to send for the police or an ambulance. Occasionally you'll have to meet such conditions. So I was told those were the 12-step promises, but they really, it turns out, are just the job description. And how many of you had someone that you can't remember their name now do these very things for you, visit you in jails and asylums? And so that's the unending debt. Does it make sense? I want to jump from there to, I got to get to 98, second paragraph. I always tell you, it's time to grow in understanding and effectiveness when we're talking in 10 and 11. And I said, we'll get to it next week, what we're growing in. So here it is. It's not the matter of giving that's in question, but when and how to give. So you're going to have to consult the Spirit because we don't want to hamper their development, but we don't want to be self-righteous either, right? This isn't between someone's opinion of what they see me doing for somebody, and I'm not to deprive other people so I can make a showing of helping somebody, but I do need to know when somebody asks, right? So we have some general direction. Most religious texts will teach you always give them the dignity of a response and attention. You always give them the dignity of the truth. Does it make sense? So that often makes a difference between failure and success. The minute we put our work on a service plane, the alcoholic commences to rely upon our assistance rather than upon God. Power. He clamors for this or that, claiming he cannot master alcohol until his material needs are cared for. Nonsense. Some of us have taken very hard knocks to learn this truth. Job or no job, wife or no wife, we simply do not stop drinking so long as we place dependence upon other people instead of dependence on God. Power. And when we talk about God, to those of you that are early in the process, we're talking about power found within. That's why they keep saying power, right? So we need you to concentrate, especially in early recovery, on the experience of power. What's going on within you, not what you think's going on around you, right? Then it tells us to burn the idea into the consciousness of every man that he can get well regardless of anyone. Why do I know that? Because I was sent to him by one who sees him well. And if I speak to him of that truth, then it will resonate. May not resonate right now, but it'll resonate. Yeah. And I am one of those who no one was betting heavy on me staying around. Anybody take bets on you guys not doing so good? I'm the guy that when they, oh yeah, I wouldn't work with him. He's a shit show. Damn sure would. Okay, the only condition that is you trust in God and clean house. So we're about to run out of time. I want to jump over. Let's see. Let's talk about one more thing on page 100. Both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. A lot of people assign a meaning to that is not the author's intent. A lot of people think that means, oh, I've got to always have a new guy in the steps. I hear it. That's not who they're talking about. They're talking about the new man within you that is starting to get stronger within you and the power within you to act better than you think. Does that make sense? I got to walk day by day consciously with that new man within me. And then it helps to have these people around me that I can be a distributor of this healing power because we prove power to us through us. But you understand that's what they're talking about, right? And it says, if you persist, remarkable things will happen. So for those of you that are students of Christianity, signs and wonders follow us. And when we look back, we realize that the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. So this is their command. Follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. That's a pretty powerful promise. And for some of us that come in here really rough, it's not going to get a lot better externally for a while. And so to know that I'm now in the new world, now it's my job to walk it out. It make sense? That's it. Next week we'll be back in 1. We called on the counselors, now y'all were gone.
Oh, no.